Sorry, I wish you had the kind of crutch that I have. All right, we've all got our vices. Books and Dr. Pepper Zero are mine. Hello, hello! Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If this is your first time hopping in, my name is Bree, and we are going to talk about some books today. It's actually been a while since your girl has hopped on the YouTube and sat down and really talked about what I've been doing. Forgive me, y'all. Life was lifing last year. It was a rough one. I ended up filming, I think, through April. And to be fair, like, I'm shocked that I even got that far. My grandmother had passed away in December, and she was pretty much my mom. And I was on autopilot for a lot of the year. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. The makeup is too tea right now to be crying like this. But yeah, I was on autopilot for a big chunk of the year. And then I pretty much disassociated. You know, people are like, how do you read over 100 books in a year? And it's simple. I ignored everything else in my life because existing in a world without her just felt impossible. Yeah. You know, anybody that's gone through a significant loss in their life completely understands what I'm talking about. And yeah, now we are a little over a year since she's been gone, and I feel like I'm finally getting my head above water. You know, not only was I dealing with all of that just being like a human being, but on top of that, I'm a business owner, and like my livelihood relies on my business. Thank God I have a partner who is incredibly supportive of everything that I do. But yeah, it was a rough year, you guys. I just didn't feel like I could connect necessarily in long form. I just got to the point where I just could not sit down and talk for longer than a few minutes. But we are back. We are doing it. I appreciate everybody who has stuck around on my other platforms and has continued to be a supportive member of this beautiful bookish community that I'm trying to build here. But yeah, welcome in. Say hello in the comments down below. Let me know how you're doing. Yeah, that's where I've been. That's what my year has been looking like. Things also might be looking a little different. Your girl has Invisalign in, so if I do stumble on my words or start talking a little bit funny, it's because I can't talk right now. It's so weird having these things in my mouth and my tongue just being like, bitch, where do I go? Like, how do I do this? So forgive me on that front. But yeah, welcome in, y'all. I am Bree, and I am ready to talk about January. January was a slow month for me. I didn't do a crazy amount of reading, but I did read some incredible books. Books that I know for a fact will already be in my top books of 2026, right? Like, you just know, sometimes you know when a book is good, you're just like, nothing's gonna top this. And that's kind of how last year went. I read, you can see her right up here, I read Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang in, I want to say February. Could have been March, but I knew immediately. I was like, nothing is going to top this book this year. And truth be told, 117 books later, nothing did top that book. That was my number one book for the year. So with that being said, I've got a grasp on what I really like when it comes to books. And so I know 2 of the 4 that I've read already are going to be tough. Absolutely tough to beat. Another big difference you'll notice, we are not going to be able to just crack a cold one. Y'all know your girl is a 10 toes down stan for my Dr. Pepper Zero. And unfortunately, because of the Invisalign, your girl can't crack a coldie whenever the hell I want anymore, right? But Stan is here. He's going to keep us hydrated. And at least your girl's getting her water intake in for the day instead of drowning my sorrows in the DPZ. Okay. Soon enough. I think I'm done in May, June. So we don't have that much longer to go. And you better believe your girl's going to be, I'm going to be hitting one of those up right in the afternoon. If you're a DPZ lover, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you're not, I'm sorry. I wish you had the kind of crutch that I have. All right. We've all got our vices. Books and Dr. Pepper Zero are mine. And yeah, otherwise than that, we're going to continue to talk about books. We are also going to continue to talk about things that do kind of revolve in the book stratosphere. And if you have not been on the internet this last month, then maybe you've been missing out on some of the absolutely ridiculous shit that has been going on. I am a big Threads user. If you want to follow me, I'll put my username up here. It is bookmarked by Breene, and I will let you know we are unhinged on that app. And as far as like levels of unhingedness, if you will, Threads we are at the very top of the unhinged list when it comes to my thoughts on Threads. It is just straight from the dome right to the page. Okay, there's no thoughts. It's all vibes. And yeah, things can get a little hairy over there. And they certainly have in the book community. And one thing I really want to talk about, if you're not interested in talking about it, you can go ahead and skip to the books part of the wrap up here, if you will. But I want to talk about a topic that has been brought up this year. It's actually two topics. They do, however, collide, so to speak. And that is relatability within books, which then leads us to a very big problem in the bookish community, and that is racism. So when it comes to relatability, I've noticed an influx in people saying things like, oh, well, I can't read that book because I don't relate to those characters, or I can't read that book because they don't look like me, or I'm not going to pick this book up because they have a different sexuality than I do. And to me, that is just a very lazy excuse. I'm going to tell you a little story. My biological grandfather was killed when my mom was probably 13 or 14. So I've never met the guy. I don't know him for all intents and purposes. The man that my grandmother remarried is my grandfather. He is the man that raised me. He was like my father throughout my entire life. He has passed. It's been almost 15 years now. But he introduced me he was a big movie guy. And when I was little, we would watch movies together all of the time. And he introduced me to characters like Jet Li, Donnie Yen, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan. And it wasn't until later in life that I realized why we watched so many of those movies. And it wasn't because my grandfather was like a huge martial arts kind of guy. He did love it, as much as the next guy does. But it was because these movies offered a mirror for him. My step-grandfather, I don't even use the word step-grandfather, he was my grandfather, was Chinese. And watching those movies allowed him to see himself in them. And that is why representation is so, so, so important, whether that be in movies, books, TV. It's necessary because it allows people to feel seen. I never had that problem growing up. Yes, I was the funny fat friend, and those girls weren't often seen. At the end of the day, I could pick up any movie on any shelf almost, and I could find a white brunette girl. That wasn't an issue. But things like being Chinese, or one of the books we'll talk about that I read is Legendborn, and being able to see yourself in a book is so, so important. So when I see people come on the internet and make excuses for why they can't read books because they don't look like that person, they don't share the same skin tone. Like, outside of that, you guys, these races, these people, they are more than that. Black characters are more than their blackness. Chinese characters are more than just being Chinese. And if your only ability to relate to a character is because your skin tones match, you're missing out on some incredible experiences and some incredible stories. And I'm sick of it. I'm literally sick of seeing the excuse, because at the end of the day, it's not relatability that is the problem. The problem is a lack of empathy and not being able to put yourself in the shoes of these characters. And again, you're missing out on some extraordinary literature when you limit yourself to that, and when you allow these underlying biases that are racism or transphobia or homophobia, when you allow those things to take over instead of sitting with your discomfort and realizing why you maybe cannot relate to these people is because you're not willing to open up to their experiences, you're at fault. It's your fucking fault. It's not the author writing it. I literally just saw somebody refer to Tracy Deonn, the author of Legendborn. I'm not even going to repeat what she said because it doesn't need to be said in 2026. It shouldn't even be in your vocabulary to say that. But I will say that she called her arrogant because she was born Black. And to even assume that the New York Times best-selling author, Tracy Deonn, to even make your mouth form those words, like, you're ignorant. You're ignorant, and at the end of the day, you're racist. And I'm not afraid to say that. I'm not afraid to tell somebody when they're doing something wrong. Because if there's one thing your girl's going to do, it's I'm going to take accountability for my actions. I am going to learn to be better. I am going to read with humility. And I am going to sit with anything that makes me feel uncomfortable. And I am going to unpackage it until I am ready to say, okay, these things are absolutely true. These things absolutely happened. How can I keep them from happening again? How can I stop the cycle of these things happening? And when you don't put in the effort to do that, you are the problem. Period. Full stop. End of discussion. You're the problem, right? And so when these people come on the internet and they say these things, at the end of the day, you're not trying to be relatable. You're not trying to relate to these characters, because I'll tell you what. I read 2 of the books I read of the 4. One was A Little Life, and then the other was Legendborn. And these are 2 books that I will never forget for the rest of my life. First of all, I related to Jude not because I have experienced the things that he's experienced, but because he's passionate. He's supportive. He's a good friend. These characters there are so many reasons to be able to relate to them, right? Bree Matthews from Legendborn. I can't relate to Bree as a 16-year-old Black girl in a predominantly white institute. I can't relate to her on that front. But I can relate to her bravery. I can relate to her resilience. I can relate to her perseverance. I can relate to those things. I can relate to her as a human being. And that's it. And that's all. You don't have to be Black to understand the Black experience. You don't have to be Chinese to understand the Chinese experience. What you have to do is be willing to put yourself in these people's shoes and listen. And just listen to what they're telling you. And if it makes you uncomfortable, it makes you uncomfortable. But that's all we can do. And that's all you should be doing. Instead of coming on the internet and saying that, oh, well, I'm DNFing this book because the character was Black and they're talking about Black experiences and I'm not Black and I don't believe in Black experiences because I'm not Black. No. You're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. And the last place you should be is on the internet spreading this vile, disgusting rhetoric. There is enough racism within the book community, from how many white authors get published every year to how many people of color, how many indigenous, how many black people get published. That is just like the starting point. But then we trickle down into people reading these books, misunderstanding, misinterpreting what is being said, and then reviewing these books in a bad light because they can't share a little empathy for these fucking characters. We're not doing it. On this page, as a creator, I am not doing it. So if you needed any clarity on where I stand, fuck ICE, fuck Donald J. Trump, fuck this administration, and fuck anybody who thinks for a second that the real world harm that is currently taking place in our country is acceptable. Fuck you too. All right? Books are political. Reading is political. You cannot escape it, even when you think you are escaping it. I promise you, there is still an inkling, a sprinkling of politics, no matter where you are at, no matter what you like to read, no matter who your favorite author is, your favorite genre is, your favorite trope is. I promise you, it, at the end of the day, is political. All right? All right. Let's get into our January wrap-up. Like I said, I read 4 books this month. Not a whole lot. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hit 117 books again this year. I don't know, but that's okay because I am prioritizing quality over quantity. I started this year off doing a 26, I think you can see the jar here, a 26 in 2026 challenge. And I have decided to read, hold for it, it's revolutionary. I have decided to read books that I already own. Yep, I'm doing it. I'm reading the books that I've been buying. Don't worry, I'm still buying more books. But yeah, I am reading the books that I have been buying. Of the 130 books that I have on my physical TBR, plus the few that I have on my Kindle, I picked 26 of them that I felt are absolutely like necessary top tier reads, and I stuck them in the jar, and every other book I am pulling a book out and just going for it, right? I am a mood reader, so for me to do that is, I get a little nervous before every jar pull. I'm like, what if I don't want to read this? What if I'm not in the mood for this, you know? But I'm doing it anyway because I want to read the books that I am buying. The problem is this, okay? It's not me. I'm not the problem. So don't even say that. It's the fact that new books come out every day, every other day, every week. They just keep coming, all right? And I have this problem where I don't produce books. I don't produce enough books. So I have to supplement them by buying more books. And that's that. And I'm just going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to add to my TBR list and hopefully keep reading them. All right. So yeah, 2 of the books for this month were picked from the jar. The other 2 were ones that I just filled in between. The first book that we read was a Kindle book, and it's actually the second book in a duology. The first book is Obsidian by K.F. Breene. And the second book is Diamond Dust. Now, this is a fantasy romantasy book. Those I do tend to, when I'm looking for a book that I want to like escape in, if you will, I tend to lean towards those. I just love magic. I love all things kind of surrounding that whimsical, ethereal type of vibe. So I do tend to lean more heavily towards those style of books. And this one falls perfectly in line, and it actually blends the human world, the mortal realm, with this fae realm really nicely. We get a female main character who is pretty much an outsider within her found family, and she is the mortal within this group of powerful fae kind of demigod, half powerful beings, so to speak. And she ends up being, I don't want to say stalked, because that does come off a little creepy. If that's your vibe, that's okay. I've read some stalker romances, all right? I ain't gonna knock nobody's, but he does end up kind of like stalking her a little bit, this dark fae prince. He ends up stalking her, and it's because she is actually she's not a bounty hunter, but she is a thief? A thief? I don't know the right word for it. I'll think of it. If I think of what the word is, I'll pop it up here. But she's like a thief, bounty hunter type collector person. And she ends up coming across this object that he needs for his realm. And so he ends up kind of telling her like, hey, listen, I need that. You have that. You're mine now. Yes, you're mine. And without ruining it, we flash forward to the second book, and we kind of dive a little bit deeper into the story. And I will say the banter in this book is really, really good. He is a morally gray male main character, but he is funny. He's got a good sense of humor. And so we kind of let some of the things he does slide a little bit. All right. It's not something we'd let go in the real world, but this is fantasy, and so we let it go. And the banter between the two characters and even the side characters is really good. You get a really good full cast of people. And sometimes I will say one of my hangups was it can get a little confusing. We don't get enough depth between some of these side characters and these other players within this book that it can sometimes feel confusing on who's who, right? And to keep each person in order. That was one of my hangups for the book and why I only gave it 4 stars. But other than that, the pacing of the book is really, really good. The plot line, unique, fun. It doesn't fall into that typical female main character, something bad happens, she needs saving, male main character steps in, he saves her, claims her, oh my god, happy ending. It doesn't really fall into that category as much. She's a badass on her own, and she can put up and deal with the things that are happening to her on her own, and so she does give you that strong vibe, which I like. The writing, from what I can remember, this was the first book I read, you guys, so give me some grace here. The writing, nothing to really complain about. I thought the books, I should say, I thought they were good. I think I love a series. Don't get me wrong. I'm absolutely a series type of book reader. I love getting lost into a world. But I do think a duology is just that sweet spot for fantasy romantasy stories that do kind of lean a little bit into like the romance being a little more than just a subplot. It's not the main thing. I wouldn't categorize it as a romance novel with a little fantasy element, but it does lean a little bit more into like fantasy, but we've got a heavy romance situation. Like if you remove that from the book, it would kind of fall apart a little bit. You know what I mean? And so I lost my train of thought. I have no idea what we were just talking about. Let me see if I can get it back. It's not going to come back. Let me take a water break. Maybe that's what I need. It's because I don't have the Dr. Pepper. But overall, good book, good main male character, strong female main character. The writing is good. Duologies being the sweet spot. This is a duology. And so I think it really works because you get a good first book that kind of sucks you in. You're like, oh my God, I really need it. And then you get a second book that gives you a nice completion. I feel like sometimes with series, that second book can feel a little bit like filler. So with a duology, I think it just works really nicely for the fantasies that have a heavier romance subplot. There's only so much that I can read about these two fucking. You know what I mean? Like, there's only so much of that I can read where I'm just like, oh my God, girl, aren't you tired? Go take a nap or something, right? And I've got a healthy appetite. I do, right? And I'm sure so many people can understand what I'm saying when I'm saying this. So, but yeah, there's only so much of that I can handle when it comes to that type of genre of a book. But yeah, Obsidian, Diamond Dust, KF Breene, 4 stars for both of the books. I thought it was a really good start to the year. And it was good that we had that fantasy fun, because book 2 of 2026 was our very first jar pull. And the jar, y'all, did not disappoint. The jar said, I would like you to start off emotionally wrecked. And emotionally wrecked we were. There are so many things that can be said about A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. And the first thing is that this book will... Oh my God. I'm going to cry. I'm an emotional type of girly. Okay, I could cry watching a home renovation TV show where they reveal the home to the family. You know what I mean? I could cry for that. It doesn't matter. I'm going to cry. But this book is... Oh my gosh. It is just incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I know there's a lot of negativity that surrounds it that says that Hanya glorifies trauma and really just dumps it on us. And she does. I'm not going to lie to you on the front or the fact that 90% of this book I read with tears just running down my face, okay? The themes in this book are heavy. They are traumatic. It is one of the most devastating books I think I've ever read. And it follows 4 men in New York City. All 4 are from different walks of life, different backgrounds, so to speak. And they end up connecting in college. And so we explore these 4 lives and the dynamics of them throughout this book, and the central character of Jude St. Francis, who ties all of these men together. And Jude is... He is resilient. He is incredible in the sense of his ability to survive in a world that already feels so harsh and so hard to be in, especially with the things that he has been through in his life. I highly recommend reading the trigger warnings for this book because it's not easy. It's hard. Hanya's writing is the one reason why this book is as digestible as it is, because otherwise I don't think I could read what I read in this book. But because of reading it, I will never forget Jude for the rest of my life. And I think that's why books like this are so important, because like I talked earlier, it's the ability to put yourself in a character's shoes and accept their experiences and just listen to them. And I spent, what is this book? I spent 800 pages in the lives of these men as a cis white woman, you know? And I felt so much for these characters. I fell in love with each one of them for so many different reasons. And it's just the messages of this book are so profound, so remarkable, that while it is one of the hardest books to recommend to people, because you do have to be in the right mind space for this book. Your headspace has to be ready to read this book. And so it is hard to recommend. You know, it's not one I'm really going to say, oh yeah, you should pick up that book. No. I instead urge people to read this at their own convenience. If this is something, if you're looking for a book that transcends the human ability to be compassionate, to be, I don't even know how to word it. And it's a portrait of endurance and love and friendship and what it means to really love the little parts of your life. I think this book is an incredible demonstration of just how art and literature affect people and how it affects people so differently, because these are four guys who, yes, they share a connection, but they each have their own life, and it really goes to show you how those things can influence them. I do think because of the negative reviews that this book has, I do think it shines a light on the privilege of the disparity in privilege when it comes to having gone through traumatic experiences. Now, I will say that the things that Jude has gone through may not be the reality for a lot of people, but they are for others. And that's an important distinction to remember when it comes to reading a book that does have heavy topics. For some people, they think, oh, well, this is not believable. This is trauma porn. You're just dumping all of this on me. But in reality, these things happen to people. There are people who have read this book and have related to every single bit of it. And reading some of the reviews of people saying like, oh, well, this is just too much. This is too much. Like, imagine being so privileged to think that these things don't actively happen to people. And there aren't people who have gone through these same experiences. And that's why I think it's so important to have an open mind when it comes to reading, and to realize that your experience isn't universal, and that there are people out here that are experiencing so many different things. And again, all we can really do is just sit and listen. And I think that's one of the most important things that I took from this book, is that I may not be able to relate to everything that Jude has been through, but I can relate to him as a human being. Which I think also comes into something that I didn't touch on earlier and that I should have added in there, is that we have this problem in the book community where people automatically assume that if they can't self-insert, that it is a problem. But in reality, it's kind of a problem to continually self-inserting yourself into books, because that's not always going to be the case, you know? Which to me also kind of contradicts itself, because it's like, how are you self-inserting yourself into a book about dragons? Girl, you've never met a fucking dragon. You are not Daenerys Targaryen. Get out of here. You've never met a Fae man who has been willing to risk his entire world to save you. And I don't know. We're getting off on a tangent, but for me, when it comes to books like this that have these deeper, darker themes, you can't self-insert yourself into this always. But you can be empathetic, and you can be understanding, and you can just kind of vibe with the people in the book. That might not be the right way to say it, but that's just how I'm feeling. You know what I mean? You know, you may not have gone through everything that Jude went through, or Malcolm has gone through, or Willem has been through, but you can relate to hardship, right? You can relate to conflict with your parents. You can relate to unsteady relationships with siblings, you know? You don't have to just look like that character to be able to understand what they're going through, basically, is what I'm trying to get into your head. And you may not even have that problem, right? You may not even think like that. You may be totally fine and not self-insert yourself, and be able to read these experiences and understand that not everything has to be about you. You're my type of people, if that's you. If not, we can all live, we can all learn, and we can all be better. You know what I mean? But this right here, this book it's incredible. It's remarkable. It's, like I said, it's not one that I recommend easily, but it is one that I want everybody to read, because I want you to feel that aching love and just understanding that I have for Jude St. Francis. Yeah, 5 stars. Like, not even a question. This book is 5 stars. Ugh. Of course, it has to be that quote that I come to in the book. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want to ruin anything. But while there are so many devastating moments in here, there are also some absolutely magical things to witness between these characters. It's, like I said, it's going to be one of my top books for 2026. All right. The third book that we ended up reading was A Child of Shivay, and that is by JT. Hold on, let me pull up my Goodreads. I can't remember. J.R. Cathers, Child of Shivay. This is, again, a fantasy. I will say this one does feel a little bit more epic fantasy romantasy vibes than just like a regular romantasy, because we do get a lot of layered things going on within this world. Basically, our main female character is this strong assassin who has been raised to believe that the other realm, a rival realm, so to speak, has caused her realm to go through a lot of hardships, and a lot of the problems are because of the things that they have done and the lack of help that they have provided. And so she has been tasked with going into that other realm undercover to kill their king. That's going to solve everything. However, she gets there, she starts meeting these people. They are fae, and you do get some different species of fae, I guess. There's one that's like the Feyn, it's Feyn, and so they're not exactly fae, but they're like a subspecies of fae. So it's really nice layered touch. You get a little bit more depth with this story than you do with some of the other romantasy books. And she is on this mission to kill this king, but she meets all of these people that kind of surround the king, including the general and a couple other people as well. And she starts unraveling these secrets about this world that she was so certain she knew. And it kind of starts coming out that, maybe the things you thought were true about your realm aren't exactly true. And I will say this. I think for a book 1, we are on to a stellar start to what I think is going to be a really good series. We've got court problems, we've got political intrigue, we've got secret identities happening, and it is interesting. It's got me in a chokehold. All right. I am ready for book 2 to try to see what is going to happen to these people. I will say I did have a little trouble with not necessarily the writing, but the way in which our FMC does kind of sway a little bit as the story gets started. Like I said, she is this badass, strong assassin, and she's coming in here on a mission. But I do feel like she slowly starts to lose herself a little bit within this book, and maybe that's intentional. We'll see how it plays out in the second book. But I do think that she kind of loses her drive a little bit, and it does end up being because of a man. Like, girl, come on. I need you to stay focused. Keep your head in the game, all right? Even though you're getting dick down, I need you to be level-headed, all right? I don't care how big it is. But yeah, that was probably like my one real hang-up, is that I do feel like the FMC slowly starts to become, what did I say? Hold on. Her motivations, that's the word I was looking for. Her motivations kind of shift a little bit. And granted, she's learning a whole bunch of new stuff that she didn't know before. She was a little bit naive which also kind of comes off a little weird. Like, this is supposed to be some, you know, well-trained assassin, and her naivety. I'm having a moment. Again, it's because I don't have the Dr. Pepper in my life right now. It feels a little far-fetched for her to be this fucking naive, okay? And she's supposed to be this badass assassin who's out here to kill a king. You know what I mean? Like, that was my only flaw, I think, that I had with this book. The FMC, just her motivations start to kind of feel a little, like, skewed. She was a little wobbly, so to speak. I do think the writing is really good. I like that she's got, like, a fluid prose. It is predominantly in the female main character's head, so you really get to understand her character the most out of all of the people in the book, which I don't mind. I personally am a big fan of, like, third person omniscient. Like, that's really what I prefer to read, but I do know that the first person POV tends to be a little bit more favored when it comes to this genre, and that's okay. But we do get a little bit more from her perspective than anybody else's, which, again, I think is the reason why you notice that her motivations do start to get skewed and stuff like that. But because of where the story goes, it makes sense that it has to be in first person, because she's really the character that starts to have the most revelations out of anybody within this book. The pacing, again, leans heavily into her internal monologue. I like to look over my reviews. I write, as soon as I finish a book, I write my review and I throw it on Goodreads. That way I don't forget anything, because I read so frequently. Sometimes I do forget what the hell happens, and that's fine. I'm not out here trying to take a book report or anything like that. So if you don't retain 1000% of every book you read, oh my God, you're probably a human being. But yeah, so I like to kind of refer back to what I say in my reviews. Yeah, that was probably my only other hang up was we do kind of get, it's not really a cliffhanger ending, you know, one where you're like,
I hate you.
No, it's more of like the problems that we had in the book really aren't resolved. You know, you don't really see where a solution is going to come into play. You're actually just piled on with more problems. But I do think that that's really what's going to set us up for book 2 and why this is going to be a really good series. Overall, I thought it was a really good time. 4 stars for me, and I'm going to count down to book 2, right? I don't really think there's a release date for that yet, but my fingers are crossed that it happens soon, because I really want to know where things are going with all of these characters. All right, and last, but certainly not least, this is actually my favorite book of the month. If we had to rank all of the books that I read, this bad boy right here, this bad girl, I should say, is my favorite book of the month, and that is Legendborn by Miss Tracy Deonn. There are not enough good things that I could say about this book and what Tracy has given us with this character. This is a YA fantasy that follows a young black girl named Breene. She has been accepted into this kind of it's called early college in the series at a predominantly white institution. And she is battling grief. Her mother has recently passed away, and her best friend have found themselves at this college. And we've got a lot going on here. This is not just your typical college experience. No. This is a YA fantasy, and so things start to unravel for our girl Bree. She ends up discovering this secret society, and it could end up being the answer to all of the questions she has surrounding her mother's death. This is a portrait of what it means to really deal with grief and trauma, especially intergenerational trauma on the matriarch line. Not only that, but our girl Tracy does not shy away from sharing the Black experience with us. We are in Bree's perspective um for all of the book. Yeah, I don't think we switched to other characters. No, we're in Bree's perspective for all of the book, so we really get an open eye look at what it is like to be a 16-year-old girl surrounded by white people, and so we get a glimpse of this subtle racism. We get a feel of what it's like to have these microaggressions against us. I mean, at one point, two of the characters try to literally touch her hair as if she's a fucking exhibit at a petting zoo. And to me, like, I devoured this book. I loved every single second of it. And again, this falls back to what we talked about in the beginning, where I don't have to relate to this book in the sense of I was a 16-year-old girl who got accepted early to a college program because I'm a genius. And, I can't relate to that. That's not my life. But I can relate to the fact that Bree is a strong, steady character who is dealing with this battle of trying to understand who she is after the loss of her mom. Like I said, again in the beginning, I lost my grandmother, and I truly felt there is a part in here where Bree talks about, it's not going to really blow or spoil the story for you, but she talks about before Bree and then after Bree, and basically describing how she felt after the loss of her mother, and she put this wall around her, and I understood what she meant instantly because I did the exact same thing. This book touches on so many things that are so relatable to everybody that I will recommend this story to anybody. If you like, I wouldn't necessarily say it does fall into the dark academia category, but it is predominantly a fantasy story, and it does have secret societies, checking off all the boxes for me, but it is at its core an Arthurian retelling. So this secret society within this book is about Arthur and the Round Table, and that to me, a lot of the reasons why I really loved it were because of the plot and the story that Tracy gives us. Not only does she give us this brilliant female main character who doesn't even feel... The reason I don't generally gravitate towards YA novels is because sometimes they really come off very immature and just juvenile. And I get it. They're YA novels. A lot of times you're in the head of an immature juvenile. You know what I mean? But for some reason, Bree does not feel that way. Of course, there are moments where you can absolutely tell that this is a 16-year-old girl. But for the most part, she is so mature for her age that you don't feel like you're reading a story about a teenager. And I think that's just a applause to Tracy for being able to give us this story that is so well crafted, so well rounded, that you get lost. I got lost in this world. I am like 200 pages in to the second one right now, and I cannot wait to get back to this. This is one of those books where you kind of go feral for. You start to foam at the mouth because you got to get back to it. You got to know what happens to these people. She gives us such a well-rounded cast of characters. Yes, like I said, we do touch on those racist moments, but she gives us these other characters who genuinely see Bree for who she is. There are so many dynamics and so many layers going on within this book, and the depth of it is just so good. I love everything about it. You couldn't pay me to say something bad about Legendborn and what we've got going on so far. We really dive into this daughterhood, this trying to survive in a world without your mom, and the guilt that goes around it because her and her mom did have a fight before she died. And you get just really grounded, nuanced characters that you can't help but feel for, you know? Like I said, I don't have to be Black to understand why the things that happen to her, these little, not little, they're not little, these moments where people are undermining her, they're belittling her, they're treating her less than. I don't have to be Black to understand that that's fucking wrong. That's wrong. That shouldn't be happening to her. They shouldn't be doing that. And a lot of times it's coming from adults, from full blown, fully chested adults saying these things to her. And it's like, you need to be better than that. But Tracy just gives us this story that is, yes, magical, but also this is definitely a contemporary urban fantasy where these are real, you know, we're in, I think it's North Carolina, UNC, Chapel Hill. We're on that campus, and that's a real place. You know, these are real places where things have happened, and we talk about slavery and the impacts that it has on people and generations, and we get this incredible magic system that is based on ether or aether. I say it ether. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong. That's all right. Don't correct me. I'm going to continue to live blissfully in this ignorance of ether, okay? But then you also get this other side of this magic system that is based on, from what I've read, and correct me if I'm wrong if you know otherwise, but is based on a little sprinkling of kind of hoodoo, African American roots, and it's just so dynamic in what she's given us. I love it. I love it. I fucking love this book. Okay, I love Breene Matthews. I love Nick. I love Sel. I love all of them. She's given us flawed, vulnerable, just real life feeling characters, and to me, that's really what gives a book its wow factor, so to speak. It doesn't feel exaggerated. It doesn't feel unbelievable to me. Everything that happens in this book, albeit, like I said, it is a YA fantasy. We're going to get some magic stuff that you're like, wow, okay? But even that stuff, it's crafted so well. It's laid out so well that everything just feels right. It feels intentional. It feels purposeful. And I think because of the way like she paces things, the way she delivers the story, it's just, go read it. If you read any of the books that I have recommended, go read this one, all right? Especially, I'm filming this right now. It's February 2nd. It's Black History Month. Pick this up. Black Girl Magic, Black Excellence. You're going to get it all in this book. Chef's kiss. Tracy is a powerhouse, masterful. Right before I hopped on here, she dropped 3 dates for the tour because the special edition, already got my pre-order in for Legendborn, comes out in March, as well as the paperback for Oathbound, which is the 3rd book. This is the 1st book. There are 3 books out. More are coming. Thank God, because I don't even want to think about this ending. I'm not ready for it yet. But anyway, she announced 3 tour dates, and none of them are even remotely close to me. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, how can I convince Brandon that we need to go to Seattle, Washington in April? Because I need to go. You guys, like, I just love it. What she has done, she has given a character that is so emotionally intelligent. And yeah, like I said, we have those moments where you're like, girl, get it together. But she's 16, you know, so I give her some grace on that. But she's just given us this so well-rounded start to a series that I can't complain about it. I can't. I feel like I'm talking in circles, but that's because I need you to read this. I need you to read this book, okay? Just do it. Just go do it. Just go pick it up. And while you're there, pick up Bloodmarked, book 2, and then pick up Oathbound, which is book 3. Just get all of them. You deserve it. You deserve to have a good time, and you're going to have a good time with this book, all right? And I say that, I do not, out of any of these books, I have a lot on my bookshelf. This is only like You're only seeing a tiny, tiny bit of it. I have a lot of books. None of them. I have never, ever had the urge to need a second copy of a book. Because it just didn't feel, it didn't feel important to me. It didn't feel necessary to me to have a second copy of a book. As soon as I read this, and I saw that Tracy had put out, I think it was a few months ago, that she had announced that they were doing a special edition of this book, I ordered it. All right? And then I saw the paperback for Oathbound is coming out, ordered it. And it's because my Oathbound is a hardcover, and then my Bloodmarked and my Legendborn are both paperbacks. And I'm like, I need a full set of all the paperbacks, and then I'll just keep the hard. You can see her; she's right here. It's just stunning. Like, even the covers, you guys, are. Hold on, let me hold it up here so you can see. Like, even the covers, like, is she not, like, the most beautiful person ever? I can't even handle it. She's gorgeous. And so she's on all of the covers. So yeah, I'm just going to keep Oathbound, the hardcover, as, like, my front facing right there. And then I'll add the special edition to go with it, right? I will say this. That's the last book we read of the month, 5-star read. We have an honorable mention book. This was a book that I read in December. I actually read it the day after it came out. Let me see if I can reach her. And that is, if you have not read this book yet, this is the second book. There's 2 books. I'm giving you some homework. Legendborn, you're going to go pick that one up, and you're going to pick the other 2 up that are so far out in the series, and then you're going to pick this book up as well. And that is Daggermouth by H.M. Wolfe. And the reason that I want to honorable mention this is because we talked about how I don't own any other books that I have wanted to have more than one copy of. This is the second book that I will be getting another copy of, because this is the this is the indie published version of her book, and it has been picked up to be trad published. So well deserved. And I will be buying the trad published version of this book as well. This book, you guys, if you are a dystopian lover and you were thoroughly disappointed by a certain book, Silver Elite, last year, this is who that book thought it was, okay? You need to pick this book up. It is a dystopian, dark romance book. We dive into the world of elites who are masked elites. Sorry, the Invisalign is Invisalining. Masked elites who are corrupt down to their bones. And then we get this badass, just top tier FMC Shadira, who is chef's kiss, who is not taking any of this shit, you guys. The feminine rage in this book is turned up to 100, all right? She is then forced into a marriage after a failed mission to the son of the president of the corrupt elites. Woo! I cannot. My most anticipated read this year, you guys, is book 2 for this book. Okay, so just go get it. She did that. H.M. Wolfe is exactly who she thinks she is. Okay. Honorable mention. This was a 5-star read. One of my top books of last year. It was in the top 3 of all of the books that I read last year. And so I need you to pick this up. I think a few places still have the indie version. Otherwise, I do believe it is on Kindle Unlimited still as well. Otherwise, wait and grab the trad published version. I'm not sure when that's going to come out. I do know that June, I believe, is when the audiobook comes out. And for my audiobook besties that are obsessed with Teddy Hamilton, that means nothing to me because I'm not an audiobook girly. But if you are audiobook obsessed and you know who Teddy Hamilton is, he's doing this one. All right, June. So there's no excuses. You have 11 months to read Legendborn and Daggermouth, and if you don't, I will be severely upset with you. Okay, so make sure you pick this one up. So obsessed with it. Woo! And that's it. That's January. We had a like I said, we had a short month. We didn't read too many books, but we read good books, okay? 2 of them were 4 stars, 2 of them were 5 stars. I can't do any type of complaining. And here I thought this was going to be a short video because we didn't read that many books, but alas, if there's one thing your girl's going to do, it's talk your damn ear off, right? But we had a good time nonetheless. We did touch on some tough topics, but I do think that they needed to be talked about, all right? I needed to make it clear where we stand here, where I stand on my beliefs, okay? And if you align with those, then go ahead and hit subscribe. I hope you stick around. I hope you had a good time. If you don't align with those beliefs, you don't have to be here. You don't have to be. You don't even have to tell me that you don't want to be here, because guess what? I don't care. I don't. No. I am a very much big believer in protecting my energy, in keeping stale energy out of my little sphere that I've created for myself. I do not circulate that shit here, okay? So if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. Bye. Otherwise, I hope you stick around. I hope you stay tuned. And I don't know, I hope you pick up some of the books I talked about, right? Like, that's why I do this. That's why I like to come on here and talk about books, is because I hope to inspire other people to read good books. And that's it. And that's all. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful, magical, beautiful, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious day, month, week, year. All of the things. I love you. And I will catch you in the next one.